The first famous quote to be made by humans was, "I have an idea." Since the beginning of human history, the biggest achievements to be made were thanks to the human ability to have ideas. This is how humans went from shiny monkeys to apex predators. And 6 years ago, I had an idea. When I first started learning about software development and game development, one of my first projects was a mix between Farming Simulator and Minecraft. It was a game that I called Earth. But I didn't say it was a good idea, just an idea. Earth was a game where I learned a lot in regards to game development. I learned the fundamentals of code, and it was exciting. However, the game wasn't good, at all. It was bound to fail, so I rebuilt it from the ground up in a game called Beyond. This game had my first attempt at randomly generated worlds. These are the only photos I have of that project, by the way. And I made it in a software called Smile Basic, which was a 3DS application that teaches people how to code. However, being on a 3DS, that shit was bound to fail as well. Back in February, I started this project again, but in Unity. I made substantial progress. However, it was still inefficient. So 2 weeks ago, I set out to rebuild it one last time, and with everything that I have learned, and everything I continue to learn, this video is the story of how I made it, and how I consider it my dream game, Timber Isle. Before I get into the development, I'd like to start with a disclaimer. The beginning of this video is very code-centric, and if you're not into that kind of thing, you can skip to this timestamp where I focus more on game footage and actual things that were added into the game, because the very beginning of this, there isn't anything to show, so all of it is just going to be talking about the code itself. So, if you're into that kind of thing, keep watching, otherwise you can skip ahead. If you're here, then I respect you. If you skipped, yeah, I don't like you. Anyways, that's a joke. The fundamentals of the project begins with what every beginning Unity developer starts with, a blank scene. I have to somehow turn this blank scene into a variable game with loadable chunks, randomly generated worlds, and I don't have a lot of experience doing it in an efficient manner. However, I do have an idea. The first thing I do is I start making a chunk script. It's bare bones, but it will soon be the foundation for all render distance code and world rendering. The chunk script at the moment has nothing, but it does have references to its child objects, the tile maps. This being a 2D game, each tile map pertains to a certain game layer that is either going to be used for ground, water, or placeable objects. The chunk is also going to be a prefab for easy access and loading. The next step is somehow getting these chunks to spawn properly in the world. This is thanks to the real heart of the project, the world script. The first thing I do is set up a simple system to spawn a chunk for every chunk in the world, and then place it in the correct location. Once I write the code, all I have to do is assign the script to a game object and test it. I also make sure to put some essential data like world size and other scripts, because I want that kind of data to be kept in order. At this time, I wasn't fully sure how I was going to set it up, but I did know my world gen code was going to be separate, just in case I wanted to generate worlds from the title menu. At this point, I started importing some resources I made months ago in the initial project of this game, because it's quite perfect. I added the tile maps and other art, and here you can see how I decided to make the actual tiles. They're more like puzzle pieces, and that's by design. It means that no matter what the tiles are, or how they're oriented, they will always fit together perfectly, not leaving jagged lines or looking like a boring grid. Shortcuts like this are how I am making this game as simple as possible. Then all I had to do was make a scriptable object that would act as a constant list of tiles, so that I could access a specific tile with an index of an array. I am not the first to do this, but it is a very efficient when generating your tile maps on a whim. The chunk prefab is perfect for this because I can call the new function update chunk, and it will assign tiles to all the tile maps perfectly. After some tests and figuring it out, I get it working, and then the next step is to only generate chunks around a central point like the player. It was surprisingly the easiest part because it was a variation on, I don't know how to pronounce this, B3AGS, but I just pronounce it bags chunk loading. I have his YouTube right here. It was a variation on his code, but it constantly deletes and instantiates chunks instead of just disabling it like his initial code. This won't be the last time I do this, like steal somebody else's code, because why should I bust my ass when somebody else already did for the same problem? That was easily the longest section. and it came off really iffy, I will be honest. But everything else that I did was more or less a breeze, so it would be focused more on the information on what I achieved rather than any detailed explanations like this section was. So this is where the real fun of programming comes in for me. Developers forever had been handcrafting the levels for their games, but I wanted to just randomly generate mine. So I had to create the rules for the world, and the game was going to follow those rules and create the world for me. And what better way to do that than Perlin noise? And I know if you're watching this video you already know what it is, so I won't explain it to you. And so I went to my favorite YouTuber, Unity YouTuber, and I bowed down to the holy voice that is Sebastian Legge. If anyone can be considered a deity, let it be this man's. Because his videos are both a godsend to those trying to learn and to those trying to be entertained. And I owe my Perlin code to this man, because it's his code. However, even if I'm a thief, I still use it for good, because I created my own world gen code, even if I used his Perlin code. So my main focus was setting it up in a way that would be easy to modify the values, and keeping the world gen code in a static function was my goal. Right now, it was simple and trash, but soon I would improve it to cover all bases like terrain and biomes. All I have to do is rework the world gen code and add more tiles and boom, pretty world. And also around this time I added the player character and allowed it to move around because it was time to explore the world I was creating. For some reason, instead of continuing to work on world gen, I took a break to focus on player-world interaction. This was actually a system I optimized myself, allowing for the modification of tiles in the world to be funneled through a single script, so that, in this script, I can decide how much of the world is modified on a single frame. It does this by keeping a queue of the tiles to be edited, and the player, or any players playing in the world, can add to that queue, and then it would funnel through the queue and modify the world synchronously? Is that a word? Anyways, after that I added a simple player inventory system and a hotbar inspired by Bag's code, but slightly developed it further, and after adding some conditionals to the editing tiles and adding an animation, this is the result. And around this time, I started forgetting to record a lot of the development, and I only recorded the features, so from this point on I will be focusing on the features, because even if I focused on the code, it would be like an hour and a half of talking, because there is a lot that goes into how this code works. I briefly mentioned how I had attempted this project back in February, but there was a big hurdle in that project that I failed to overcome, and that hurdle was my inability to figure out how to add tile entities. This time, I took a page out of Terraria's book, and instead of trying to add tile entities which hold the data in themselves, instead I decided to make every tile hold an index for a period of storage for, say, chests and whatnot, which would be stored elsewhere in the code. And what you're seeing right now, don't worry, the graphics are in no way, shape, or form final. I just focused on the features and adding them rather than making it all look pretty. It was just get it working before you make it good, you know? As you can see, also around this time I was adding more to world gen, and I added a tick system that works like Minecraft, allowing for tiles to turn into other tiles or grow into tiles around them. It was essentially a simple way of adding farming or any sort of tick updates. I also added a simple crafting mechanic that allowed the player to finally have a form of progression, and I'm actually still heavily tweaking the progression and crafting to find a more fun form of progression in the early game, and I'll be tweaking how it all works for a very long time until I finally consider it, fun, the full image of how I want the game to be. The new farming mechanic is my favorite mechanic, however, I cannot wait to expand it. Since it's the basis of the game's origin, developing the farming to be satisfying as possible is important. In the footage you can kind of get a feel for how some of the final game is going to end up going, but there's still a lot to do. The next thing I did, for the first time in my life, was add entities. Right now there are only cows, but with the systems I have in place, any entity can have its own AI, but still be able to communicate with the world data so it can be saved. Right now, they generate with the world, but soon I'll make them spawn around you when there aren't many entities near you, like a regular Minecraft or any game entity spawning system. And after the entities, came the major improvements to world gen that the game needed. I spent days working on it, trying to make it as seamless as possible. I personally really love how the worlds came out, and I can't wait to get your opinion on it, because every survival game needs to have a good world in order for exploration to be fun. There are still departments it needs to be improved in, but overall, I really love how it's coming out. Well, this is nearing the end of the devlog, but the final feature I have to show off really brings it all together. First thing I added was saving and loading. You can save a file from the game, and you can load it from the title screen. And speaking of title screen, I added the title screen. And it's not all completely done, like it's still in progress, but it works. The background is a placeholder, but the logo is pretty close to final. Also, the overall layout of the menus is also close to final. The title screen was pretty easy, but when it was added, it really starts making Timber Isle feel like a real game. Even if this is still the beginning of development, these past 2 weeks have been a godsend of essential features, and seeing it all come together is really nice. And that's it for the script. Everything from this point on is straight from my heart, and to just talk to you guys honestly, it's been a long journey, to be honest. Game development and YouTube as well. For those that remember my old videos making Minecraft Redstone computers, that was pretty much the beginning of a lot of my success when it came to YouTube in the time that I had, you know, a fan base and whatnot. I built a lot, I loved creating, and something that has stuck around for most of my life is my massive love for video games. Making video games is kind of my dream. It's anti-realistic, however, especially in this economy. Finding a way to make a living off of video game development. Some people do it, but not a lot. Not me, anyway. This is my first project, my first actual game that I'm finally thinking I'm going to complete, and it's the furthest I've ever come on it, and I'm happy. This project, Timber Isle, started so long ago as a simple game called Earth, and me finishing this project, which I will do, it's kind of like adding fruition to younger me, and that's why I consider it my dream game, I guess. It's just, it means so much to me to actually finish something that I've worked for so long on, and all I ask for is your support. Any of you guys listening to this right now, you're listening to it because of an emotional investment, have to be. Either that or you just haven't found another video to click onto yet. But for all intents and purposes, this video acts as the first step to getting this game out there. I want at least one person to play this game and think, wow, this is really good. That's all it takes, is one person. And that person can't be me, because obviously I'm going to think it's pretty good, but in all actuality, I think it needs some work. I have no idea when the game will release. All I do know is I have really high hopes for it, and if you guys want to see more on it, you know what to do. Subscribe, like the video, comment, any of that. Please, I want to know what you guys think about the game. It's the opinions of the community is what allows projects to really come out so much better than AAA developers. And I'm really trying to make something that is from the heart, I guess. So, sorry for getting all cringy on you guys. Just give me your opinions. And also, there will be a video pretty soon that is more emphasized on the gameplay of the game, and I just haven't gotten there yet. I have a lot more development that I have to do. It's just getting this video out is a priority. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you are here, I love you. I love you so much. Anyways, you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next video. See ya.